Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Recharging Chat. Tonight, Dr. Luann Morado and I, Sharon Kimberly Cravens, are going to be sharing CellCore's Carboxy Binder. So we have some great information about this big brother of biotoxin binder. Carboxy is really special because it's super duper potent. It's 4 times the strength of what is in biotoxin binder. So we want to go through the ingredients, what's in there, what's the best way to use it, who can use it, how do you use it, what are some fun ways to layer it into your life, and why is it so recommended? What is it extremely potent for? What does it work best with? And then we have some really incredible testimonials, which are always really fun. But before we start, the disclaimer, as always, is that these videos are meant to be information and education for you. We're meant to be sharing these with everyone, and they're not to be used for treating, diagnosing, curing any one person or any particular issue. So with that being said, I think we'll get started on learning about Carboxy. Some people have used it. Some people layer it into their protocols or use it in different ways. Other people here tonight might not know about it or haven't experienced it. Feel free to chat if you'd like. Type in if you've used it, you have an experience with it. Also, throughout this time together, you're more than welcome to throw out questions. You know, we're here to share the information, but we also want to hear from you if you have anything that's really relevant to what we're speaking into. And then later, as we're done with sharing this information, if there's time for any other questions or observations or anything you want to share, we're here. We're here together, and this is a community. So we're glad you're here. Thank you for showing up. And let's get started on Carboxy. So Dr. Lou, you want to begin?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. So Carboxy, as Sharon mentioned, it is the big brother of biotoxin binder. And clinically, it's really amazing for tough mold and fungus cases. It binds to all of the mycotoxins that are in our urine mycotoxin tests and pulls them out of the body. And it's really good on tough parasites and tough Lyme cases. So it's awesome. It's really awesome to help supporting those type of things that people are going through. And it's great for fungus and candida, and it's really stealth for different infections that are hard to clear. So people that have a lot going on, we add this into their protocol. It's really good for binding to industrial and environmental toxins and different chemicals, and works really well on paragons and phthalates. So Carboxy is not typically part of the protocol that we give to people, but we do add it in at times for certain things that we might see necessary.
Yeah, that was a spelling error on my part. It was parabens. So it's really good for taking care of parabens and phthalates, which are in like so many healthcare products, healthcare, shampoos, conditioners, all that stuff. So just to pop that in there, that was my bad, Luann. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
So some of the key things about carbon technology is that it's not only the binding that it does for the toxins, but it also repairs the damaged cells and it supports life. Like we mentioned before, in a lot of the biotoxin binder, HMET binder, and Virad Chem binder, it has small, medium, and large chain carbons. And like we said before, the small and the medium chain are so small that they get absorbed systemically throughout the body, and the large chain carbons stay in the digestive tract. So when you're using these, they're hitting all areas of the body, working on specific things, and they can also cross through the blood-brain barrier, which is nice because you can get into these really tiny places and pull stuff out that shouldn't be in there. And the way that they extract that CellCore uses to extract and create the biotoxin binder is through water extraction. And a lot of things that are extracted, people use chemical, and with us using water to do this, it keeps the pH really low, which affects the amount of energy left in the product to use in the body. You're also not adding any chemicals to the process because you want to try to keep it as clean as possible. And when you have the lower pH, you have more energy to bind to all the toxins. So Carboxy supports and balances the gut and the microbiome like biotoxin binder, but again, it's much stronger. People who start the program and get on these products always start with a biotoxin binder, and we introduce the Carboxy later on if necessary. We don't just jump somebody into using Carboxy because it's highly concentrated. And when we dose the Carboxy, Carboxy comes in a container. Do you have a container there, Sharon, you can hold up?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not in the pill form like the other binders are. This is in a powdered form. So our standard dosing for this is a half a teaspoon in 8 ounces of water twice daily of distilled water. Remember, always distilled. And for sensitive dosing, we will choose a 1/16 or an 1/8 of a teaspoon to start with in 8 ounces of water twice daily. If you want to really push your body and go aggressive, you can do 2 teaspoons in 8 ounces of water twice daily, and even up to 3. But I am warning you to go very low and slowly introduce this if you're working your way up, because it is very strong and powerful, and it will pull a lot of stuff out of your body. You can also use this for children. And if you have a child that's about 50 to 125 pounds, start with just a pinch and you can add it to their juice. And then you can increase it to half of the adult size that I mentioned. If you have a toddler they're under 50 pounds, then you want to go 1/4 of the adult dose twice daily. So these little guys can take it too. They just have to take a really small amount.
So most importantly, if you have Carboxy, here I'll just show you, it is like black as night and it gets on everything. So I just opened it over a piece of paper because I don't want to get it on my hands, on my clothes. It obviously can come off, it will dissolve, but if you have white on, I would definitely put an apron on if you're going to use it, or just cover yourself, protect yourself, because it's loose. So I'm kind of a word nerd, and I thought this was a fascinating point about Carboxy. It is highly concentrated and it is amphoteric. So that's amphoteric, and that is Greek from the word amphoteros, which is a comparative of the word ampho, which is both. So it's like the word amphibious. So like an amphibious vehicle is able to navigate water and land. Amphoteric is an adjective in chemistry, and it's relating to a compound, especially a metal oxide or a hydroxide, which means that it is able to react both as a base and as an acid. So in other words, Carboxy is a true chelator. So I thought that was pretty cool because I got stuck at amphoteric. I was like, I don't know what that means. So
and remember, we say a true chelator, and with CellCore, because of the way that the carbon technology is added to it, you're pulling everything out through the feces, and the general chelators that we've used in the past to chelate things like heavy metals out of the body are pulled through the kidneys, which is why you have to pulse them, do them slow, go on and go off, which is different with CellCore. You can stay on these.
Yeah, to answer your question, Tim asked, should it be used solo on its own, or can it be used with other binders? Absolutely, it can be used with other products. It goes really well with the Inflamma Complete, the IFC, and then any of the other binders as well. It's a selective binder, so it has the intelligence in it with the carbon technology that it can be taken with or without food, which is huge, because other types of cleanses or protocols or whatever will be like, here's the regimen and you can't take this near food, or it just takes the guesswork out of it. It's beautiful that way. You just makes everything so much simpler, which is amazing. So we love Carboxy for that reason, and the other binders because they are selective and intelligent. However, the only caveat is with Carboxy is you want to take it 1 hour away from para 1. And that is because of the Mimosa pudica seed in para 1. So again, it goes with everything, but you just want to be cautious with the para 1. So there's some frequently asked questions that are really, really helpful. Most notably, the first one is the whole red flag for a lot of people of citric acid. So the ingredients, we didn't go over what's in it first. So let's go over the ingredients first. So as we know, all of the binders have the extracts of the humic and the fulvic acid, which is what makes them the technology in the carbon-based product. So there's the polysaccharides, there's the polyelectrolytes, and then there's that red flag, that citric acid, right? So the citric acid itself, is that a source that's clean? So could you answer that question?
Yeah. So when you see citric acid, you see a lot of different labels in the jars of food, and you see citric acid, and you see it in a lot of different supplements. And usually we tell people, to be cautious. Don't add citric acid, because the way that citric acid is sourced or created. Now, 99% of all citric acid is sourced from either fermented bacteria or fermented mold. And that's why we tell them to be careful when they're, looking at their ingredients, and if it's in there, you really need to know the source. So when the reason that some companies create it out of mold is because it reduces the manufacturing costs like 5 to 10-fold. But CellCore does not. It's sourced from the fermented bacteria, which there's no mold fermentation in the process at all. And that's the biggest concern that we always have about citric acid. But it's so, citric acid is that we have a whole citric acid cycle in our body. It's something that's very necessary. The biggest concern that people have about this is something that we don't even have to worry about when we're using the CellCore products, because of the way that it's manufactured. And the way that it's used in the body, people are worried. They're worried like, oh, I have mold in my body, I don't want to take it because the citric acid inside of it. You don't have to worry about it, because this is really good at pulling mold out, and it's going to be extremely helpful for those people. And it's going to help decrease the load of all the toxins in the body overall as well.
Yeah, and their process is really specific. Like their process, there's 4 steps basically. In the first step, they clean and they purify the fermented bacteria, which produces the citric acid. Then secondly, they heat it to kill any residual particles. Thirdly, they spread it to dry, and then they send it off for bacterial and fungicidal testing. If it fails, they reject it. And if it passes, it is moved on, and they use the citric acid and attach it to carbons, and that changes the oxygen level. So it brings the oxygen level way up. So just know that the citric acid that's on that label, it's not going to make anybody react. It's like a touchy subject in the mold world, but it's really the whole reason that the product works so effectively. So the final product isn't just the citric acid itself. It is citric acid that has brought the oxygen up, and it is attached to the carbons. So it's not the same like beginning molecule. It has been changed in the process. So that's really cool. The next question is, what is the difference between carboxy and biotoxin binder?
So the carboxy is the active ingredient inside the biotoxin binder. That's why we call the biotoxin binder the little brother, or the carboxy the big brother. It's basically extra strength, meaning there is a lot more of the carbon-based products in the ingredients. And so when you have something like an acute exposure to something, you can use this carboxy because it's systemic in nature. So it'll go through and help, where the biotoxin binder is very gentle, really works well, but stays mostly in the gut. So it's really good to have on hand for an acute exposure to some kind of chemical or even mold. The other thing is that the biotoxin binder is really good for like mild toxin exposure cases. And they're both good for long-term use. You can stay on both of them for as long as you want, really. But we always begin people, if you're not taking it just for an exposure, we always begin people on the biotoxin binder, and then move them up to the big systemic big hitter of the carboxy.
Yeah, so it's recommended to start with biotoxin binder. It's the yucca root in there is really great for the GI tract. So carboxy is obviously more systemic, and biotoxin is a great starting point. So why is the price so much higher than biotoxin binder?
Well, actually, it's not higher. It appears to be higher because it costs more, but what you're getting when you buy the carboxy is you're getting 5 times the amount of biotoxin binder. So you would need like 5.5 bottles of biotoxin binder to create the amount that you get inside of the carboxy.
So it just seems like it's a lot because the price is high, but there's all this powder in here. You'd have to empty out a full bottle of biotoxin binder 5 times to get what's in here. And then we have a load of testimonials. Most notably, we have a couple of images, but first I just want to share screen and show the container, just so people have a different point of reference with seeing it. So this is what it looks like. It's 0.80 grams, 2.8 ounces. The ingredients, straightforward. Here's their generalized benefits. And that's what it looks like. Basically black, chalky. I mean, what do you think it tastes like, Luann? To me, it's like dirt, a little bit.
A little bit like dirt, a little bit like, I want to say metal-ish, a little
Really?
dirt and metal-ish mix. I mean, that's my taste bud anyway.
Mm.
What other people on this call have been on it?
Yeah, maybe type in the chat what you taste. I taste dirt, like kind of chalky. Yeah, Karen says dirt too. When I put it in my bath.
Well, it is dirt.
Basically, right? I put it in my bath. It has like this residual on my skin, but it's nice. It feels nice, and it kind of just smells like earth. So, one amazing story I have images for. We've collated these images that are just really heartbreaking, like before carboxy. There was a child he's 4 years old. Um, Actually, his parent is a practitioner. And so she was just sharing about her son's story and his progress. So he's 4, but he was diagnosed at 3 years old with pustular psoriasis. So that means, pussing, weeping wounds and psoriasis at 3. He had been also previously diagnosed with eczema by 2 different dermatologists. And obviously, this child was miserable. He had lesions on his entire neck, anterior and posterior torso, and his thighs. So he had these sporadic lesions on his bilateral upper arms as well. He was itching all the time, and he had to crawl to the bathroom because he couldn't walk with his inner thighs being so swollen and sore. There were times he literally couldn't ride his bike or walk or ride his scooter. So he's pretty miserable. He would wake up in the middle of the night and go to his parents' room because he was so itchy and his skin was really painful. It's just heartbreaking. He didn't want anyone to touch him because his skin hurt so badly. And when they do oil or cream, they'd have to pat on his body because when they would rub it, it just hurt so much. So this poor child, I just want to show you. They'd done a lot of functional medical testing for him through Great Plains, Genova, and Vibrant Labs, right? And I guess, not sure what came up in particular, but
They took a lot of supplements out of his diet. They changed a lot of the stuff that he was eating,
right.
and tried to help do things to help his gut. But what the practitioner didn't know about CellCore, and so somebody that we knew told the practitioner about CellCore, and then her son got seen by CellCore practitioner, and then later that month she put him on the product, but when he was checked, he parasites, tapeworm specifically, and environmental toxins. So they put him on the program, and within a week he started feeling better. He started doing the drainage pathways, and they made him drink distilled water, put him on Carboxy and Para 3, and put him on CT Biotic and CT Zyme. And after about a week, he started to feel like, oh my gosh, he was feeling a little better. He had really dark circles under his eyes. I don't know if we have a picture of that, but that started changing. And he was happier because he was miserable. And he had in his hair, he had a lot of the plaques. You could see some on his neck right there, but he had it all in his hair. So that went away. He had a geographic tongue that completely went away. And after that, he did have another skin flare, but then that's when they started giving him the CT Zyme. And in general, he had his cervical lymphatics in his neck, the lateral chest wall, and like the inguinal lymph nodes and under his armpits. All his lymph nodes were very swollen all the time, and they all started shrinking pretty fast. So the mom was very happy about that because nobody really knew what it was, and he had all these misdiagnoses. And the great thing was, yes, did you want to say something?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, was that after he started doing the CellCore and cleaning the stuff out, he grew. And he had a twin sister, and his twin sister, he was significantly shorter than her. And when he started to take this, he grew a half an inch in the month that he started taking it. And So he started catching up to her. So he was really excited about that. And
So
he's a lot less pain.
I just want to show the after, just to have some resolution to stop looking at these terrible pictures. This is the after. Yeah, so much better, right? Like this
Yeah.
poor little dude is just suffering so badly, and it's all completely gone. And it's just amazing. They can't show his eyes or his face just because it's a child, but this just made my heart hurt. So seeing the before and after to me is just that's remarkable. So sorry, go ahead,
Yeah.
Luann.
Yeah. And, with him constantly having, with him having this and being in pain and all the discomfort and stuff as a child, he was with him not sleeping. That's why he wasn't growing. So it just shows how it compromises so many different aspects of your health.
Yeah, I mean, to say that his growth was being stunted, that could be an assumption, but the fact that once that cleared, he could grow physically is pretty compelling. So, it's a true godsend, obviously, for him and his family and their life. Another powerful testimonial is there was a client that had been dealing with like the chronic grinding, like you said earlier, was it stealth infection? They were dealing with a chronic inflammatory response sort of syndrome and mycotoxic mold illnesses for about 7 years, this poor individual. And they tried every binder on the market for 7 years. And finally, Carboxy came along in this woman's life. And that was the strongest and best binder that she had ever used. And Carboxy was really a pivotal moment in her journey, in her mold journey for healing. And she had to move out of her house actually because it was moldy. And within 2 months of taking Carboxy, she was a completely different person after this binder being in her life. So it really allowed her to get through the protocol much better and to work through other infections that she was experiencing. But 7 years, y'all, like it's a long time. But to have that like turnaround, 2 months, I mean, 60 days, 7 years, it's incredible.
Yeah. Another one of our CellCore practitioners, he was actually one of the he's an amazing practitioner, he's an amazing nutritionist, and he lives up in Michigan. And this was years ago, and he wasn't sure what was wrong with him, and losing weight, very sick, thought he was having heart trouble, kept having, pain in his heart, and getting everything checked, doing everything he knew to do, just not feeling well, super tired all the time. I mean, his symptoms were so bad that he couldn't work. He had to cut his patient load way down and only work a couple days a week and see like very few patients a day. And he was actually in his office one day, and he noticed, like, he went in his office in his room and he started feeling like his chest started hurting again. And he noticed a little tiny chip on the windowsill by where his desk is. And underneath that chip was a little bit of black mold. And long story short, it turns out that beyond that wall, up all inside that building, it was full of mold. So every time he went to work, he was poisoning himself, didn't know that it was in there. And like, he literally really thought that he was dying. And so got with some other practitioners. He got on CellCore, started using the Carboxy. That's one of his major things that saved him, actually saved his life, put him back together again, because his body was just horrible. And then the stuff that came out of his body that he told us about afterwards, because mold does some crazy things and it affects all of the other systems in your body. That's why when we have people who are dealing with mold exposures, we always have to get in there and, add this to the protocol and kind of change the protocol up a bit. But changed his life, and he's back full time. He travels, he teaches, he's got amazing, huge practice, and really educates people on the mold and what it can do and how it can affect your heart, and you can have all these crazy symptoms that nobody will pick up because a lot of times nobody really knows about mold.
Yeah, or they're not educated about it, but from what you do know, it's like the bully on the block. And if mold's in the house, it's kind of in charge, right? More or less. Is that a good analogy?
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
So Carboxy handles the bully, which is huge. So like I said before, I like to take a bath in it. What do you say as far as how much to use, Lou, for that?
Oh, when somebody's starting, if they're just starting to bathe in it, just using filling up their bathtub, taking a teaspoon and taking maybe just, again, a quarter of a teaspoon, and it'll just spread out in the tub and your water will turn rusty color. Your skin will feel really soft. And you can, again, because you'll take it in through your pores. So starting off with just a small amount, and then the longer you use it, the more you can use of it. And you'll know if you use too much, because you might feel like, ooh, I feel a little achy. I feel like maybe I'm detoxing a little bit. And that's not where we want to get with CellCore. We want to keep you under the radar. So that's why we cut it down. But taking a bath in it is really nice, especially when you have the expression on your skin of you can have mold and funguses and different rashes that come out through your skin, and the Carboxy bath is very helpful for this for people.
Yes, and the other route is in your nose, in your sinus cavity. If you have a lavage, I just put a pinch in the chamber, and just a pinch, and that's plenty for me. But it gets all up in your sinuses, and just so much interesting things end up in here. If you don't have a lavage, this thing is a game changer. You can get it at CVS, Walgreens. Not that I'm a fan of the pharmacy, or you can get it online, but they're about $99, and a salt pod goes in here. And in this little area, you can pop in a pinch of Carboxy, or however much. Just try with a little bit, because it will turn this all brown in here, or para 3 in here, and then nose, and then all the good stuff comes out here. And then you hold it up to light and go, oh, that was inside my head. Awesome. I'm glad it's out. And then you do the other side, flip it, and it's just lovely. It's battery powered, it's suction. You don't have to do any funny, let it go in your ear canal, down your throat, none of that. So can't rave about this thing enough. But Carboxy in there is game changer.
Yes, it is a game changer. And you want to make this part of your hygiene, because everything that we're breathing in through our nose, right? Our nose filters it all, but stuff likes to colonize in our sinus cavities. So mold loves hiding out in there. Parasites love hiding out in there. So as you're systemically taking all of these different things internally, yes, you're going to get some of that to go, through into those areas. But when you put it directly in the lavage and then you squirt it up into your sinus cavity, it's a must. I tell everybody, get a lavage and start getting this stuff up into your nose, especially with also all the stuff in the air, the pollutants in the air that we breathe in, especially before it rains and on rainy days. So important to get this in your nose to bind to the highly toxic pollutants that are in our air.
From the aerosol campaign that we're all really enjoying tremendously, which is why we need to be on products like this. Maybe one day they'll stop. But I like to swish Carboxy a little bit in my mouth, like just after I've flossed. I just put a little bit and I swish it and then I spit it out and then I do a little bit of mouthwash. That's just something I like to do. The other thing is you can do eye bags. If you just take a little pinch, put it in your palm, a little distilled water, and then just pop it right here. And that will just help that area with puffiness, dark circles, it's extracting. So you could give that a try as well. Any space that's warm, dark, moist, mold likes, things like to colonize, like Dr. Lulu said, that's just life, right? You close something up, it's going to grow creepy crawlies. So it makes sense to flush this through to cleanse. So what's another way you use Carboxy?
I like to make a face mask with it. So putting it in with a little distilled water and just making it into a dark paste and applying it to your entire face, leaving it on for however long you want. If you have 5 minutes, if you have a half an hour, leave it on there and then wash it off. And that's a nice way to really, add it into your hygiene to start really cleaning, because there's so much stuff on there. It also pulls and draws. And remember, you have sinus cavities above your eyes, all around, so it's going to help to draw that stuff out.
Yeah, and just be careful with you have a beloved washcloth, don't use it because it will stain. I used like a beige washcloth once and it didn't really come off that well. So word to the wise, just use something you don't care about or use cotton rounds or whatever. So does anybody have any questions about Carboxy? Any observations from using it? Any thoughts? Our next call will be in 2 weeks time, which is going to be, wow, May 10th. We're at the end of April already. So full moon's coming then. It's May 5th, which is a full flower moon. That will be, I think, Eastern Standard Time is 1:36 in the afternoon on Friday the 5th. So if you have your goodies for a full moon protocol, you'll get your para 1, para 2, para 3, and your biotoxin binder. And if you're doing an advanced, that is 7 days, you would start on Tuesday the 2nd, do the 3rd and 4th, full moons on the 5th. And you continue on 6th, 7th, finish on the 8th, 7 days. 5 days, you'd start on the 3rd, Wednesday the 3rd, and on Sunday the 7th, and 3 days is Thursday the 4th, and on the 6th. You decide. And once you keep doing the full moons and you feel the differences in where you are, you can tweak it to what you feel would be appropriate for what's going on in your life at that time. So, we have anything else? Anybody want to say anything?
No, I think that we can go ahead and stop the recording. And if anyone wants to ask a question, they can still say something in the chat.
Okay. Very good. Thanks for being here, everybody. We appreciate you. We love you and keep doing great work, taking care of your vessel, your body, mind, spirit, soul. Have a great night.